All right, let's go into grip. We're going to go through, there's 4 parts to this. One is the why. Second is how much is enough. I want us to actually discuss it, like how much is enough in terms of reserves or in terms of growth fund, etc. The third part is what into, like what's your allocations, not necessarily what you guys have allocated, but what is a good allocation percentage wise, etc. And into what, and then how to do it, like the ABCs and XYZs of the grip formula. And I'd love to not just hear from me. Obviously, this is going to be an open discussion where you guys can share your thoughts and potentially what you're doing. Obviously, you don't have to reveal anything about your personal finances. That's personal. But to share your ideas and thoughts that could be helpful to others is very much welcomed. And I think this is going to be great. So let's first start off with why have a system like this? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Mike says basically the whole foundation of ONTRACC. So yeah, tell me why.
Well, you're not really going anywhere if you don't save your money.
Yeah, and also compounding, right? Like for me, like I've actually hit that briefly. So I know it's crazy to think that only like 1% of people around the world, Joseph, I think, are ever going to be able to see like $100,000 spendable cash in a bank account. Less than 1% of people in the world. Most people are never going to see that. I mean, even in the U.S., probably less than 10% of people will ever see that. And like, it's not a common thing. It really does compound, right? It's really difficult to make your first 20,000. It's extremely difficult to make your first 100,000. But once you do that, you just start to think about like 10xing, right? Which is easy to find a 10x investment nowadays, depending on your time frame. You're only really going, if you have 100,000 to get to a million isn't that hard. Once you have a million, you keep compounding and investing things that give you dividends, right? The more money you have, the more dividends you have. It just makes sense long term. That's what you want to do as a high value man. You want to have options. Like Joseph told me, if you have money, you have options. You can live where you want to live. You can get better quality food for your family, better health care, and better quality experiences.
There you go. Jefferson.
Yeah. I didn't have anything, but I remember reading an experience someone shared years ago about what it was like. I think he was like dating someone who's this girl whose father was like very super rich. Anyway, he made the analogy of like it's like you just chop zeros off of every price tag. It's like, you know, a $20,000 car just became a $2,000 car, or a $200 car. That's the kind of freedom that, I mean, you can buy with the right amount of effort, and it just changes everything. Like not having to care about the price, and yeah, more money, more options. Like Mike said, there's really no substitute for that in life.
Completely agree. Anyone else? William.
So I have a small story to tell you guys. 1 year ago, I've again had some car problems, and my car completely broke down, and so I was on foot. And at that time, I was already working as a physio for 4 years, so full 4 years, and I had absolutely like so little money in my bank account, which is crazy because for someone to be working for 4 years and having almost no money aside is crazy. But at that time, I realized that I didn't have enough money to buy a new car, or even a used car, even like 5,000 euro car. And so at that time, I realized that I really had to change my spending habits, and mostly my more important, my keeping habits. So
Yeah, keeping habits. I like it.
keeping habits, yeah.
Yeah.
And so from that time, I started putting money aside every month. And like now we are 1 year later, because it happened last year on July.
Mhm.
And this year, like right now, I can buy 4 or 5 cars if I want. So I don't have any more problems, or if I have an emergency, I can easily fix it. So it's been a real game changer for for my psychological peace. Like I can live easily, and from now on, it's like this. Like year after year, I'm going to keep some money. Mm.
I love that. That's awesome. And it's real world applicable, right? The fact that you couldn't buy a car, you know, a year
Yeah,
ago,
and
you could buy 4 or 5. That's freaking crazy.
actually, I can also attest that I had to borrow money from my dad at that time, and also like from my ego perspective, it was really challenging to ask my dad some money because I had been working for like almost 5 years already, and I had to borrow money from my dad, which is which is crazy to think about, just for a car, just for a used car, you know. So yeah, it's been a game changer for real.
Amazing. So the
Mm.
principle that we're talking about here is pay yourself first, right?
Mm.
And we used that in the past, and we can still use it because that's what the principle is. But we've just divided it into different parts with grip, and I'll explain in a second why we did that. But just to kind of explain or rehash what we're talking about here in terms of pay yourself first. One, he mentioned peace of mind. I wrote that down. Independence from anyone. So it's not just independence from the government of taking care of your own retirement funds, right? Because you don't want to rely on the government having, you know, your retirement in mind for later in life. I think that's an absolutely horrible strategy. But also from your parents, also from other people that might need your help. Instead, you should be able to help them, right? And so that's one of the reasons, or few reasons, of grip. Another one is in terms of business and being able to be aggressive when it comes to deals. And what I mean by that is to never be needy and desperate. If you don't have money like on hand, you have to kind of take what you get or take what you're offered. And it's a very problematic situation to put yourself in because you might get a horrible deal as a result. And then you're not sure if you should take this deal or not. And instead of like, no, this is a great deal. I have a lot of money. Even if it goes sideways, it's going to be okay. But the probability of it going in a good manner is huge. So I'm going to take the deal. And the only reason why you could have done that was because you actually paid yourself first. And so pay yourself first is an automatic wealth builder. And if we're talking about consistency coaching, why are we doing consistency? It's because of automation. Like we want it to happen guaranteed, automatically. We want us to just be taken there like an escalator, an elevator, without anything being broken. It's just like it takes us there instead of us having to climb a mountain with our hands, you know, or like with rope. It's like, bro, you're being taken to where you want to go automatically. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it as an importance perspective. And yeah, it just provides a winner energy. That's the last thing I wrote here. Cool. So now that we understand what it means to win when it comes to money, how much? Is there an end goal in mind? Are we trying to get to billions? Are we trying to get to 100 million, 10 million, 1 million? And why?
You have like a good like $5 to $10 million. You should be pretty happy with that as long as you don't go crazy with spending and you have a system where you can get paid dividends on it. And the investment grows itself over time. This is my opinion.
Amazing. Let's hear someone else's opinion. Thank you, Mike.
Mike hinted at it, but I mean that's my goal. It's not a specific number, but the idea is to get to the point where your money not only works for itself, or works for you rather, but essentially becomes your income. I mean, you know, you're just growing it at a small conservative rate, and just the fact that you have that sitting around, you know, it's invested. Dividends are paying for your lifestyle and then some. And it's not that you'll stop working at that point, but it's that it massively increases your options. You don't have to work, you know, at that point you can do what you want to do. You have money to throw at things that are important to you, important to the people you care about. And having that kind of cash on hand, you know, like you said, Joseph, you can invest in things that have a massive ROI in the future that most people won't be able to take advantage of.
There you go. Yeah, and when things are discounted as well, when there's blood in the streets, like Warren Buffett talks about, it's 50% off, but you know it's going to go back up in price, and it's like, yo, this is my chance, this is my opportunity. Have you figured out your number? I think that's very important in terms of, and that could be a net worth number, or it could be a monthly expense number, where it's like, this is the number where I'll be happy. Obviously, you should be happy anytime with anything, right? I call it, you're always grateful but never satisfied is kind of the ultimate way to think about it, in my opinion, where you just like, I'm grateful for everything that I've got, every single thing, but I should never be satisfied. And as a result, I keep working every single day because there's people out there who require and need my win-win situation that I can provide.
After the house is paid for, like realistically, like I think $5 million is good. Just like be happy to the point where you like, you can breathe. Okay, my house is paid for. I have this money. It's invested. It's working for itself. Okay, now everything I do from here on out is things that I want to do to see fulfillment in my life. I'm not working for money per se. Well, the money's already growing for me. I'm doing it for fulfillment. Kind of like Warren Buffett. A lot of what Warren Buffett does, right, is he just bought a lot of stuff and he just holds on. He held on to it for decades. Day to day, he read whatever he wanted to do for fun. You know, he has events and stuff, but like generally speaking, his job every day for years was just basically reading a lot of research and making 2-3 investment decisions a year, or sometimes even it would go decades without making an investment decision.
There you go, William.
Yeah, so like you guys said, it all depends on the lifestyle. Some people have a very expensive lifestyles, and others have very cheap lifestyles. So you have to really know yourself. But when you have enough money, like for every month or even money invested, you can already be happy. It doesn't. More money doesn't really equal more happiness, but it equals more opportunity. So even at a certain point when you can live off your investments, you can be satisfied, you can be happy, but you can always go up. It's not it doesn't have to stress you, but earning more and more is going to give you more opportunity. I think there is no limit, but just know that more money will not necessarily equals more happiness, just more opportunities, I think.
Tanner Chidester is he's another coach in the space, and he said that just get to 10 million because of the 10%, you know, annually from the stock market, blah blah blah, Vanguard index funds. He said that it's very difficult to spend $1 million a year if you're a normal person, and so that's kind of what his thought process was. So I like that. I just like 10 million is pretty cool. I also want to challenge the aspect of like, more money doesn't equal happiness, because it really depends on what you do with the money. My mind frame of that, and I love sharing it with other people, is that the more you spend money on other people, where you don't look at it as your own, it's not yours. Like, I mean, you're being gifted it, really, when you really think about the big picture. And yeah, okay, maybe you worked for it, and you know, you came up with great ideas to achieve it. But at the end of the day, like, that was from someone else. There was another originator that allowed you to kind of have that. And so I think the ultimate is to be able to serve other people in the best way that you find creates value for them. And if you do that, you are alleviating suffering, which in and of itself is creating more happiness for other people. And you get what you send out. And so the more happiness you provide to other people, the more happy you're going to naturally be. There was an interview with Will Smith. I personally don't think he's a horrible guy, but anyway, in general, the quote that he came out with was that once you make, you know, there comes a point in time when you make so much money that you go through the clouds and into the stratosphere, which is like, and at that moment in time, you're just alone up there. Is very few other people that have what you've got. And so as a result, it's like it's not it's very lonely up there. And it's like you're making so much money that is just beyond ridiculous. And so you kind of get to the point where the happiness levels aren't up there either. But I was like, yo, bro, if you spent that money on other people than yourself, bro, your happiness levels would be up there. That's the only thing that I could think of. Now, obviously, you don't give that money away, but you build systems and you use that money to create systems that alleviate suffering, and as a result will increase people's happiness and in turn would increase yours. That's kind of just how my brain works around this. I don't know if you guys kind of have some similar thoughts, but yeah, Jefferson.
Yeah, I agree, because we're at the end of the day, we're all here for each other, you know. No man is an island, as the saying goes. And if you have more money than you know how to spend, I think the best place to be is providing a service or running a business which helps other people and isn't necessarily profitable and doesn't need to be, because you don't need the money. So even if it takes a long time to break even, you know, you're doing it, it's a charity as far as your bookkeeping is concerned, but you're changing the world, you know, one person at a time, and building reputation in the process. So, or whatever that's worth, you know, it's a different kind of asset.
I love that. I would actually angle it from the perspective of try to get as much profit as possible, because then you can actually grow the system bigger, which isn't a bad thing for everyone, because then more people can get the service, right? So profits actually, but you don't have to take it back to yourself. You can just keep it in the company and just grow the thing. Anyway, just
Yeah.
the thought.
My angle is that when you have to be profitable, it limits your options, limits what you can provide.
Right.
But yeah, I agree in philosophy.
And technically, you wouldn't have profits if you're reinvesting it in the company. So yeah. So yeah, the only other thing I wanted to say on the how much aspect was like obviously we're talking about 5 million, 10 million, you know, we're talking about like all these wonderful huge numbers, but it starts with a 3-month emergency fund. You know, it starts with getting to 6 months and then eventually 12 months emergency fund. And then you can kind of scale up and beyond that. But that's where I would recommend that we start. So that should be the first goal if you haven't achieved that yet. Okay, so what into? So this is going to be interesting. So this comes back to the concept of grip. Okay, so instead of pay yourself first now, let's talk about growth and reserves, because these are two very separate things. And I coined the term because I was trying to figure out what do you do with pay yourself first money? Like what's the goal? What are we trying to do here? Okay, you pay yourself first, 10%, 10%, 10% every month, or a lot higher. But it's like, when are you going to spend it, and on what? You know, inside, like, it was very confusing to me. And so that's how I came up with the two different growth and reserves, which are two very separate entities. And the way that I divided it up is that growth is something that you are actually trying to spend. So you're paying yourself first, but you're doing it towards getting more income capacity. So you're doing it towards increasing your income instead of keeping it and hoarding it to yourself, so to speak. You're putting it back into the economy and you're trying to learn something that will allow you to make more money. Reserves, on the other hand, is money that you keep in a specific place, doing something specifically for you so that you keep your money. You don't lose it. So you can look at it from growth is the return on investment opportunities, while reserves is the hedge against risk and against issues in the future of what might happen potentially. And you always have money, you always have peace of mind, you always have this, that, and the other. But growth is like, I'm aggressively going out there trying to make money. Yeah, so you guys can obviously share what thoughts you guys have on it, but maybe you guys can give me examples for what you would spend your growth money on other than OnTrack, because OnTrack is designed to help you guys to make more money over time and do so consistently. But what else than that?
ROI plays real estate, stocks, crypto, commodities like gold, silver, commodities are generally speaking things that are tangible, but are presented in a stock market like structure, which are things that help you grow your wealth over time. Hey, remember, the riskier you get, the more money you're likely to make, but you can also lose a lot more money too.
So Joseph,
Yeah.
reserves is obviously like your emergency fund, and that's that.
Yeah.
I guess growth includes personal growth and financial growth. Is that what we're talking about? So investing, like Mike said, of any kind.
Well, I mean, you guys are the judges, but like I'll come with my suggestions, but you guys at the end of the day have to decide what you spend your growth money on and your reserves on, if at any. So I'll share what I think, but I'd love to hear from you guys what you would do with that money. Because like that's kind of the end goal with the mastermind, is everyone shares what their thoughts are on how to use it.
Okay, but it's on the table. Yeah,
It's on the table. Of course, I'll share my thoughts after you guys have shared. William.
Yeah, so for me, or you invest your money, or you invest in knowledge. So knowledge, education, wisdom, which gives you more opportunities and more ways to evolve and bring you more money, which in turn you can invest more money in the future. So I think the two most important things are investing, and also investing in knowledge and competences, or knowledge, basically. Yeah.
Competence. I love that. Amazing. Aaron.
Yeah, no, I agree with Tom with William. I know personally, I've kind of always been in investing since I was younger, but I've always been way more aggressive when it comes to the investing in the skills, because what I learned time and time again is I could easily drop, a couple $1,000s on, for example, coaching, which will then allow me to make that kind of money on a monthly basis, or I could then put it in the stock market. And when I've seen the highest returns from doing every time is just putting the money into my skill set, than opposed to putting that money into the stock market. Even though that it's really cool to look at a graph long term and see, okay, this would be this amount of money. But the thing is, for example, like when I got my first high ticket sales job, I had to hire a company to get me placed. And then from there, eventually I made all the money back and covered the cost of the program. And then now for the rest of my life, I'll always know I'll never make less than that amount. And the thing that's cool too is with skills is the better you get at them, the more money you make. So that's kind of just been my whole philosophy. But yeah.
Love that. Amazing. Jefferson.
Yeah, I think paying to delegate is a big one. And whether it's, if you're broke, you have to fix your car yourself. If you've got money sitting around, you pay to have your car fixed. And it's, that's a very simple example of how things can scale from there, whether it's a maid around the house, or food prep, or even solving a big problem like a business problem. Being able to delegate, something I'm not good at, but I'm working on.
I like that. So investing in your own skills or other people's skills, right? It could be something that saves you time or saves you money, right? So like if your car broke down, for example, maybe that is a good return on investment to use from the growth fund. I would never touch reserves for that, for example, ever. That's not what the emergency fund is for, in my opinion. Aaron.
Yeah, I want to ask something. I also want to ask you that first. So I'm just kind of curious, what do you mean by that exactly? Because a lot of people do need their transportation in order to be able to get to their job so they can make money. Because you said you wouldn't take out of the emergency fund for something like that.
I wouldn't. The reserves, we're trying to compound the hell out of that thing. Like, we're trying to allow that thing to sit untouched forever. It's like if you allow yourself to touch the reserves, you like, your reserves are no longer a virgin. If you want to look at it from that perspective, it's supposed to be pure.
Yeah.
Let it be. Don't touch it ever. It should be out of sight, out of mind. Other people might look at it as an emergency fund. Well, that's an emergency. I need to be able to get work, so I need to have that to fix my car. But it's like, you should never be in a position where you have to touch the reserves. That's why you got the growth fund. Jefferson.
I guess it's a difference of mindset. So from your perspective, it's like you paying to fix your car to get to work. The ROI on that is huge because you can't get paid unless you're at work. So you're spending a little bit to earn a lot. And
Yep.
I guess that makes sense from a growth fund perspective.
Now, obviously, if that is the only way and you just spend all of your growth money on this, thing that you needed to increase your skill set, yada, yada, and it's just completely broke, and if you absolutely have to touch your reserves, I would do that, but then get the money back as soon as possible within days.
Yeah, that
right?
sounds fair.
Or I would flip and use a credit card. I don't mind. I'm not touching my reserves. I'll use a credit card with no interests for the first 30 days type thing.
Mhm.
And then just pay off that credit card as soon as the growth money comes in for the following month. Boom, it's taken care of. So it's just a type of intensity. Like, how intense are you at it? The more intense you are at it, the more that thing is going to stack.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which allows us to get to more about the allocations that I'm going to share. Daniel.
Yeah, I agree with Joseph on this, because my experience when it came to grip was similar. I came to a point where I was about to exhaust my my emergency fund, and I was like talking with Joseph about it. This was like a few months back, and I was telling him, man, I don't want to spend and clear off my credit card debt with the hard things that I've accumulated over the year. And that was the mindset that was missing a year and a half ago. Since I did this every month, 5%, 20%. So in that account, in that separate bank account, there's only incoming, there's no outgoing. And when I see that, and then I have an outgoing from that, like I take some amount from that, dude, that literally hurt me. I was so angry that I had to take that amount to settle off a credit. I was so pissed at my friend, and but that was necessary, because that mindset wasn't there for me, because I thought, okay, emergency fund is for emergencies, so whenever a health emergency comes up or transportation emergency comes up, I'll just use it from there. No, that's why I have the growth fund. So I'm like having, so this is what I was doing. I was doing 20% back then, as I was earning stably, consistently. So 10% went to the growth fund and 10% went to the reserves. So the first thing that I touched for the credit was not to go for the reserves. The first thing that I went for was the growth fund. I was like, it's okay. I don't want to do the other classes. Fine. It's okay. I'll take this. So that's like a huge mindset shift. And it gave me the confidence for the rest of the months. I just agree with that. It hugely helps.
Huge. Awesome. Love it. Jefferson.
Yeah, peace of mind is priceless. As an aside, I wanted to mention, I think we should get into how to use your growth fund aggressively, like the financial tools that are out there, in a separate call in the future. Like I have multiple credit cards for different purposes, cash back on gas or whatever, but I don't carry a balance ever. So it's the best of both worlds. You're building a massive credit score and you're not carrying any debt. So you're just playing the game perfectly. They're not really able to take advantage of you, but you are able to take advantage of the system by playing by the rules.
Yeah. So obviously with the credit card thing that I mentioned, I hope I can reiterate to you guys that you should never, ever have a credit card balance that you pay 18, 20% and above on ever. Just so you guys know, because the goal is to get interest to work in your favor, not in the opposite person's favor, right? And that's how you compound, and you don't want to compound against yourself. So I'm gonna just share with you guys what I wrote down in terms of growth and reserves, what it is for me, and you guys can kind of make your own decisions about what you want to do with your own growth and reserves. But I just look at it from a risk perspective. Obviously, the riskier it is, the more growth fund it is. The lower the risk, the more reserves it's going to be, because you no matter what, you're going to be invested in something if you've got cash. Like if you're not invested in something else, you're invested in cash, which means that you're invested in that specific currency that you just bought and that you've received now. And that is a very dangerous asset to hold, because it loses its value by 2 to 10% every single year, right? And so we need to be very wise about where do we actually stash this money. When you put your money in the bank, you don't have that money anymore. It is no longer yours technically. The bank now owes it to you. And if they go bankrupt or if they choose not to pay you at any point in time, they actually can choose to not do so if they're in a difficult predicament. Yes, it might be FDIC insured, but how do you know that the government's actually going to be able to pay you that money if the bank goes bankrupt? So what do you do with your money if you don't put it in the bank? Well, it's that's what we're discussing now. That's what we've got 6 minutes left. So, you know, let's pay attention. But yes, banks use your money to give it out to other people, just so you know. And they never actually have your money anymore. They just, like, as soon as they receive it, boom, they just lend it out, because that's how they make their profits. Okay, so, and also the government can take any money that is on your bank account. That's
Just
also
want to mention, because the majority need, you know, money in the bank, got to pay the rent. Keep your money with a credit union, not a bank, because they often have public info on the percentage of reserves that they have to keep on hand. And it's a lot more than your local bank. It's usually like at least 20, 30%, whatever. So something to think about. I've got like 3 accounts with different credit unions, and so I don't deal with banks because there's just really no benefit to doing that.
excellent. So make sure you're paying attention to this, because now we're talking about the how-tos in the last few minutes here. And if you don't understand some of the stuff that we're talking about, this is the opportunity to network with the group, because there's guys in the group that know everything about these topics. And some of them have hundreds of thousands of dollars. So just so you understand. What I put in terms of reserves, let's just talk about reserves for a second. It's a hedge. It's supposed to be non-risky, okay? Cash is risky because you lose 2 to 10% per year. So you don't want to be in cash. But temporarily, if you think, like I do, that the stock market could crash by 50%, it's not bad to have cash on hand. Having said that, the other things that I personally like to use as a hedge is physical gold and silver, because physical gold and silver has an opportunity to increase in value as the dollar loses value, because they're inverse correlated, which means that when the dollar goes down, gold and silver goes up. But it's not an investment opportunity. It is a hedge, okay? But it could potentially do 10 to 20x. But if it doesn't, just hold it, because it's not something that is easily sold back and forth. So it's kind of illiquid, which is a good thing, because then you don't automatically just exchange it for cash when you need it or want to spend it. So that's what I like about gold and silver. Other than that, house, land, this is the safe bets, okay? This is if you're going to be extremely conservative, then you're talking about these things. I would also put Bitcoin and Ethereum here as well, because they're safer plays than all the other stuff that's out there, and it has a massive potential upside. However, I want to share with you guys that gold has a 250 times more proven track record than Bitcoin and Ethereum. Also, silver is an amazing play, because normally, in normal historical times, it is a 15-to-1 ratio when it comes to gold and silver. And what does that mean? It means that usually for 1 ounce of gold, you have 15 ounces of silver that people exchange back and forth. Currently, right now, that number is at 88 or 89, which means that it is most likely that it will revert to the mean at some point, which means that silver most probably is going to massively increase in price compared to gold. So if you're in a spot where you're not going to travel a lot and you can stack up some silver, then it might be a good hedge because it's probably not going to go down in value as the dollar decreases in value.
So you're saying silver's changing hands 5 times slower than historically, 5 times less frequently?
It is it's just looked at as a lower value asset than what it normally has been in the past.
Yeah, it's definitely going to break out for
Yes.
sure.
Yes, exactly. So this is what I would recommend. Yeah, so all those things that I mentioned now, again, I'll mention it again. Cash, house, land, gold, silver, Bitcoin, Ethereum. This is the stuff that I would put on the reserve side that I never ever touch. Okay. And now we go over to the growth side. Okay. So this is more to do with skills and higher risk, higher return on investment possibilities. Now we're talking books, we're talking coaches, we're talking communities, we're talking skills, we're talking equipment, we're talking tools, anything that might help you to make more money. We're talking real estate. In my opinion, that's on the growth. Like if you're going to invest into it in order for you to get cash flow in, that would be a growth fund opportunity. Buying businesses, expanding your social media, YouTube. In my opinion, that's a return on investment play. Altcoins is also a return on investment play. Potentially, you could lose all your money, but you could also get a 5x, 10x, or maybe a 50x. Who knows? But it's very important that when you do growth fund type of return on investment deals, that you have a stop loss of some sort. Because you need to decide, okay, I'm doing this in order for me to double my money or triple my money. Okay, so at what point do you sell it at a loss? Because you should be, this is the growth part. On the reserves, you should never sell. On the growth, you should, if you're beginning to lose money. So this is like the important interplay between these two different parts. As you can see, it is crucial to understand that there's so many different parts to pay yourself first. It's not just, I'm saving money. It's no, you have to understand the continuum between growth and reserves, risky and non-risky. And the more you invest in yourself and your own learning and your skill set, the less risky all of those growth investments become. Right? Because you are taking a chance on yourself so that each investment after that becomes more and more educated and more or less and less risky. So hope that makes sense. Anyone want to share their thoughts or anything that came up while I shared? Or any questions?
It can be tricky to draw that line between growth and reserves, because sometimes your reserves are growing and sometimes your growth fund is just sitting still. And deciding which asset falls into which category, I think it really depends on you, who you are, and what your priorities are.
Yeah, I think 70-30 is perfect. I don't know about you, Joseph. I think 70 reserve, 30% growth is perfect.
Well, I'll share with you guys some thoughts on it. I wanted to mention this because this is something that has been helpful for others, and that is, I look at it from the perspective of when you receive money. This is when you're deciding what should be going into the growth fund and reserves fund. But I would highly encourage that you choose your percentage in advance, and obviously you share it with me because we put it in the app. But how do you, some people split it 50-50, right? 50% to growth fund, 50% to reserves. At a time when you're trying to build up your reserves, right? Because you might not have a 3-month reserves. You might not have 6 months. You might not have 12 months, right? In the beginning stages, I personally would do 10% going to growth fund and 90% to the reserves in order for you to stack the reserves until you get to that 3 to 6 months, at least reserve fund. If you have a family like me, I would probably go for 12 months of reserve fund. But keep your 10% going to growth. It's just that you have to be more conservative because of your situation, right? So people who have family and kids and stuff like that, it's better to like stack a lot of money towards the reserves fund in the beginning so that you've got a lot of stash there. And then once you get to that 12 months, What I recommend is that you start doing the shift. Now, you can do the shift immediately and go to 90% growth fund, and then 10% goes to reserves continuously. And what will happen is that your reserves will almost automatically always hit a personal record every month. Now, if the thing that you've invested in temporarily dips, it's probably temporary, but since you're keeping it there, it's going to go up over time anyway. But so what this allocation does is that it allows you to get your financial safety first. And then once you have that financial safety, you can now be more aggressive with the growth fund.